Mr. Stoltenberg, thanks for joining Bloomberg. I want to first start with President Trump. At the start of his trip, he said that he was insulted by President Macron's talk of a European army. As the head of NATO, do you agree?
The important thing for me was that President Macron made it clear that when he speaks about stronger European efforts on defense, this is within the framework of NATO. And I actually welcome more European defense as long as it takes place inside NATO and it's not an alternative or something that duplicates NATO. And I think that was clarified, and therefore I think this is not longer a problem.
How realistic is that, though? Because some NATO countries are still not reaching that 2% GDP target for defense.
That's a fact, and that's the reason why I think it's fair that the United States and I, as Secretary General of NATO, that we are very focused on how can we make sure that all NATO allies make good on the promise they made to move towards the goal of spending 2% of GDP on defense. The good news is that all allies have stopped the cuts, all allies have started to increase, and more allies reach the 2% target. But we still have a long way to go.
Do you agree with Trump's announcement that he'll pull out of the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty?
The problem is that Russia is producing and deploying new nuclear-capable missiles in Europe. And that is putting the whole INF Treaty in jeopardy. This is something which NATO allies and two US administrations, both the Obama administration and the Trump administration, have raised with Russia. And we call on Russia to ensure full and transparent compliance with the INF Treaty, because no treaty can be effective, can work, if it's only respected by one part. So the main problem is the new Russian missiles.
Do you see, though, the risk of more nuclear weapons being deployed to Europe as a result of this plan to withdraw?
So I see that that's actually something that is happening now, because Russia is deploying new nuclear-capable missiles in Europe today, as in Russia, and that's a challenge, and that is putting this very important nuclear disarmament arms control treaty in jeopardy, and that's the reason why it is so important that Russia comes into compliance with the treaty that ensures full and transparent compliance.
President Macron's problem, really, I think, was that the European allies of the United States weren't consulted before. Do you think NATO members should have been consulted before the U.S. decided to potentially withdraw?
Well, this is an issue we have discussed over several years. It was an issue we discussed at the NATO summit in July, and all the heads of state and government made a very clear statement about their concerns about the new Russian missiles. It was one of the main topics at the defense ministerial meeting in NATO in October, and I expect it to be one of the most important issues at our foreign ministerial meeting in NATO in December. So this has been an ongoing process in NATO for a long time, and we are getting more and more concerned because Russia continues to produce and develop this new missile system, and we are continuing to call on them to come into and ensure full compliance.
I want to move to the Middle East quickly and ask you about Iran. The sanctions on oil and financials went into effect earlier this month. Many European NATO allies deplored this. Do you agree with your European partners that pulling out of the nuclear accord was bad for business and as well as security?
There are different views among allies when it comes to the Iran nuclear deal, but all allies agree that we are concerned about the missile program of Iran, that Iran should not develop nuclear weapons, and we're also, of course, concerned about the fact that Iran is supporting different terrorist groups in the region. So this is something all allies have agreed on for a long time, and we continue to call on Iran to respect all UN security resolutions related to this.
I want to ask you about their close neighbor, Saudi Arabia. Should NATO allies continue exporting weapons to Saudi in the wake of the killing and the murder of Khashoggi, as well as the backdrop of what's happening in Yemen?
This is a horrendous killing, murder, and it's extremely important that all facts are that we have a thorough investigation, and that those who are responsible are held accountable, are brought to justice. this. That is always important when we see crimes like this, but especially since this is an attack against the journalists and therefore also an attack against the free and independent press. And free and independent media is a cornerstone for NATO and for any democracy.
Very quickly, my last question. Any update on Turkey's decision to buy the S-400 missiles from Russia? And if they integrated the system to the air defense of Turkey, would that pose a compromising risk to NATO security?
This is an issue which I know is now discussed between the United States and Turkey, because this is of concern, because we see that there are disagreements. I will not, help that dialogue if I started to comment on that publicly, but I welcome the fact that US and Turkey is now talking directly together on the issue of S-400 and also the new fighter aircraft F-35.